The latest tech.
I'm Alexa. I can answer your questions.
Interviews.
And we are evolving, and we are seeing an amazing opportunity that's happening.
Accessibility.
Accessibility is one of our core values. It's even a part of our mission statement.
This is Double Tap TV.
Welcome to another edition of Double Tap TV. Thank you guys so much for being with us each and every single week. I am Mark Aflalo, by my side each and every week, Stephen Scott. We're diving right into our topic this week, and that topic is audio description. Now, we know here at AMI we've got some amazing people who work on audio description day in and day out, but today we're going to introduce you to a pretty unique company that describes some pretty big name shows in Hollywood. You'll see them stuff on Netflix, etc., but not only do they do that, but they also employ audio describers who themselves are actually blind. Now, before we get to them, Stephen, I don't want to assume that everybody at home actually knows what audio description is. So let's pretend for just a second that you don't know what audio description is. Can you describe it for us?
So audio description is a voice, a third voice, if you like, in a TV show or a film, or you might even consider it a disembodied voice, which gives you information about what's going on screen, in the same way that, for example, subtitles lay out the dialogue. In Canada, it's known more locally as described video. Around the world, though, we do call it audio description. That's it in a nutshell. You know, it gives you information about scenes, it gives you information about characters, it lets you know what's going on in those quiet segments, or when someone does something in, say, a horror movie, when someone grabs a knife and heads to a door. The voice gives you that information. That's audio description.
Okay, so let's bring on our guests right away because we have two people here. Eric Wickstrom is a director of audio description for the International Digital Center. And soon after we get to him, we're going to be talking to Liz Gutman, who's the head of audio description writing at that same company. So let's start with Eric for a second. Eric, welcome to Double Tap TV. Thank you for being here, number one. Tell us about IDC. What is IDC?
IDC is a full-service post-production facility based in New York City and Los Angeles. We do literally everything you need done for post-production, from captioning to color correction to everything else you could think of, including obviously audio description. We also have a full-service dubbing department, foreign language to English dubbing that we do at this point. We have full-service Spanish audio description as well. So again, everything else you could possibly need for your post-production needs is what we do.
Eric, tell me about some of the shows and projects you've worked on that we may have heard of.
Sure. So we do a lot of work with various vendors. I think the stuff that we do that's probably most spoken about and popular is some of the work we've done for Netflix. So recently, Bridgerton, that was in the news. We just did season 2 of that, and actually we had gone back and redone season 1 to deal with some updating of style guides and the language around race of characters and the way we describe some of the love scenes and all that stuff. What else? Squid Game was a big one that we worked on. The Witcher. What else? Queen's Gambit was a pretty popular one. Afterlife. I mean, many, many things. We do everything from, kids shows all the way through, the darkest horror type stuff. So, hundreds and hundreds of titles a year we do. So you've probably, if you listen to AD, you've probably heard our work, whether you realize it or not, depending, you might have jumped genres 3-4 times and kept hearing us. So many, many things that we've worked on.
Now, as I mentioned earlier, so Liz Gutman, you're the head of audio description writing at IDC. Thank you for being with us this week. I want to bring you in because I want to talk about writing for audio description. What's the process? Because I'm guessing it's like asking you what the secret sauce is here, right? How do you actually write for AD?
Oh, man, there's a lot of steps to it and a lot of skills that go into it. So from a practical standpoint, we watch the media, we describe the visuals that happen between sound effects and dialogue, and then someone narrates it. That's the very simplified version of what we do. In order to do it well, you need to have a lot of different skills. You need to be observant. You need to have a certain sense of empathy, and that you can kind of put yourself in the situation of, okay, if I weren't able to see what was going on here, what would I need to know in order to effectively convey what's happening without overwriting? You don't want to put in description just because there's some silence there. If nothing needs to be described, then leave it out. You need to have a good vocabulary, but you also need to be a good editor. And you need to be able to edit yourself. So when you go and write and then you go back and look it over, you need to be able to get brutal and say, okay, well, I like this word or I like this phrase, but I don't have time for it, or it's not necessary, or I need to cut it down. So you really need to be able to self-edit as well. Yeah, and just to be able to adjust the tone and the vocabulary so that it's appropriate to the project as well. So, for example, a kids show is not going to be described in the same way that Squid Game is going to be described, is not going to be described the same way that Bridgerton is going to be. Those all require different tones and different types of vocabulary and phrasing. So yeah, there's a lot that goes into it, but I will say that curiosity and a willingness to learn and take notes goes a long way.
Liz, I've got to ask you, as the writer here, as the head writer, I'm really intrigued by this because my wife loves the show Bridgerton. I am not a fan, but that's another story. But she loves it, and that's fine. And there's many reasons. Maybe not so much in season 2, but certainly in season 1. But the writing gets a little bit steamy from time to time, and I just wonder how you deal with that. Right? Is it per show that you think about the content of the show and you write accordingly for that, or is it that you have a style of writing that you just apply across all shows? How does it work? How do you make it not come across as too gratuitous, or actually, is that the intention?
Yeah, I think you have it exactly right. Is we kind of tailor it to the show. So depending on what you're describing, if it's something like Bridgerton that's meant to be steamy, you want to make sure and use language that encourages that. Again, we're trying to bring the audio description experience as close to watching it as possible. So it's making sure that the describer, that you as a describer, as a description writer, let that feeling sort of wash over you, and then reach into your sort of bag of tricks to bring out whatever language and phrasing and tone will best suit that. And then moving forward in the process, in the booth, when the narrator is recording, to make sure that the director can adjust that a little bit too. Like, oh, could you, maybe it's bring it down a little bit, or bring it up a little bit, or it's a multi-step process that I always find really fun, even if it can be kind of embarrassing in the moment, to really get into that sort of romance novel, steamy description. But at the end of the day, that's what makes a great AD track, is putting all that extra work into it and making sure that it fits. It fits with the tone of the piece without necessarily distracting from it, but that it really blends in with the language, the tone of, the actual physical tone of the scene and everything like that.
Liz, Eric, I hope you can stick around for a couple of minutes because I want to ask you one more question, but we've got to take a quick break. It is Double Tap TV. We're talking all about audio description. I am Mark Aflalo with Stephen Scott. If you guys got a question, it's feedback@ami.ca, on social media @Double Tap Canada with that hashtag, which is #AskDoubleTap. We'll continue with Liz and Eric and bring on our third guest after we take a quick break here on Double Tap TV.
For more great Double Tap TV content, visit ami.ca/doubletap. This is Double Tap TV.
We're back on Double Tap TV talking all things audio description. Mark Aflalo and Stephen Scott with you. Now, we've been talking to Eric Wickstrom and Liz Gutman from International Digital Center. Eric, earlier I mentioned that you guys are unique because you employ people who are actually blind themselves. And during the break, you told me you wanted to put something out there for people who are actually interested in this.
I want to throw it back out there in the universe, again, touching on the blind and visually impaired talent that we have, 15 or growing on the roster. And I am available to be reached on social media. So companies, if anybody from any competing companies, my competitors are watching this and they are interested in working with blind and visually impaired talent, reach out. My DMs are open, slide right into them, and on Twitter, and I'll be happy to take a phone call. I will happy to tell you our workflows from A to Z. This is not proprietary. This is not protected information. And then I will put you in touch with every one of these people through email or telephone, however you prefer, if you want to hire them. So there's literally no excuse if you're a company providing audio description to not be involving blind and visually impaired folks in the process. I will help you do it. If you're serious about doing it, we will get it done. So that's something I always like to say when I do one of these. And I've had some people, some of my biggest competitors in the field have reached out to me on this, and I have made the time, and they are working with folks that work with us now. And I encourage more people to do that, to reach out and let's have the conversation.
Guys, thank you so much for being with us this week. It's been honestly enlightening to understand the process and how you do it. And not only that, but how you employ blind people to actually do this audio description.
Now, Mark, it would be remiss of us not to, on this episode especially, if possible, speak to one of these audio describers who do the wonderful work of describing the content. And even better, if we could get one of those blind people on. And that's exactly what we've got. We've got Thomas Reed joining us from New York. He's joining us on the line here to tell us all about his work. Now, he's a voice actor and he works in the field of audio description and narration. Thomas, it's been great having you on the show, listening in to what Eric and Liz has got to say. Tell us from your perspectives, how did you get into the world of audio description?
So I got into AD when I became blind. So I wasn't born blind. I became blind about 18 years ago. And so soon after that, I got into AD when I first, after losing my sight, when I first kind of went into my family room one day. There was no one in the house, and I was like, you know what, I want to kind of just veg out and lose myself and not think about anything. And so I found the remote control. That took about a half an hour. And and I turned on, I found it was HBO. And I turned on the program and I caught a film that was just beginning. And, I started to watch it and realized, oh, I'm not going to know everything that's happening on that. Literally before that, I didn't think about it, right? And I got to this movie, and it was I think it was, and as much as I talk about it, you'd think I would go and check on this, but I really need to put that on my to-do list, is to check. I think it was $1 Million Baby. I think it may have been that movie, because I think Morgan Freeman was in it. And it got to the end. And I was following the best I could, and it got to the end, and I think the last few minutes of that movie were silent, and I did not know how it ended. And that was really when I was like, okay, I need something else to help me watch this movie. Other than my wife, who was so kind, and because I was pissed off, to be totally honest with you, and I was watching it by myself, and I told her about the experience later on. And the way HBO works, they kind of rebroadcast things all the time. And she found out when that movie was playing, and I think it was like the next day or that weekend. And she went and watched it just to be able to tell me what happened at the end. So that was So that's my wife, and she's also the person who first got me into a theater with audio description. So that was in 2007, I think it was, when I first experienced audio description in a movie theater.
Thomas, off air when we were talking, you said that you got into this business when you were 35 and when you came to lose your vision. Can I ask you to share what happened in that story?
Yeah, so I had a second incident of cancer. The first was as a child, so I lost my left eye as a child from retinoblastoma. And then my right eye as an adult at 35, there was another tumor in the behind the right eye, and it was extremely aggressive, working its way up the optic nerve. And so the best decision at that point was it was a quick decision. It had to all happen relatively quickly, and so that right eye was removed to save my life. And so at that time, just moved here to the Poconos where I live now, new home. Built up the home from scratch. This was our home, and had a 6-year-old at the time, and my wife was pregnant with our second daughter, and so all of that happened at the same time. So it's a whole lot was going on. Yeah.
Yeah, I just can't imagine how that would have felt, honestly, having kids myself on top of having to deal with sight loss. I feel for you. But you admit yourself that it's a new beginning, and you're doing some really amazing stuff here. Now, voiceover work and audio description, narration, and so much more. Talk me through the process of that. How do you record audio description for IDC?
That script will have a line number and the dialogue. Okay, so that could be one sentence. It could be multiple sentences, right, in that one line item. And that line item usually corresponds to a frame rate. But I don't necessarily need that because I'm not doing the editing and I'm not necessarily lining it up like that. And the dialogue will also include some notation about how to deliver that. So brisk is a word that we hear pretty often in there. Just, say it as fast as you possibly can. And so I will go through that script and record on my side, and then, again, following all of the direction within the dialogue notation, and then send them the file. And so some of that, I pay attention to sort of what's, you can get a sense of what's kind of happening. If the person is talking about smiling, then you obviously know that it's something happy, and you may want to reflect that in your voice a little bit. But in the notes, in the way audio description is done, it's still, especially by the majors, and I call the majors, things for Netflix, right? Things for Amazon, HBO, all of those guys. In the way it's done, it's pretty still that standard sort of kind of flat delivery. So there's not that much, but some folks might take a little bit, you could put a little bit of emotion in there. Sometimes I would like to put in a little bit more, or I would like to, as a listener, I like to hear a little bit more, and I know everyone is different. So I play around with that slightly, so it's not over the top. You're never going to hear that over the top from me on something like that. I would love to. So maybe when that starts opening up and folks want to actually play around with that a little bit more, that would be great. But in terms of the process, that part of it is straightforward, right? Line number, sentence, dialogue. Line number, dialogue. And so obviously what you want to do is to make sure the takes are right? So sometimes what will happen is that after you do all of that and you send them a clean file, because you don't want to have large breaks in between that file. You don't want to have ums, anything like that. You're just reading the straight text. But you may have pickups, and a round of pickups that could be things that I fumbled, words, names. That can definitely happen. Or they might change something on their side because maybe in the QC process, oh, wait, we don't like that sentence, let's change it. Or sometimes even, they may have added something to the film. They got a new delivery of that project and something new is in there. That could definitely happen. So then you got to do a round of pickups. That's usually straightforward. That's it right there. What I would say is that, that's not sexy, right? That doesn't sound sexy.
Okay, Thomas, stick around because we've got to ask you what your favorite child is here, or what your favorite project has been to work with. So stick around. It is Double Tap TV. I am Mark Aflalo with Stephen Scott. We're going to be back with our guest Thomas in just a second here on Double Tap TV.
For more great Double Tap TV content, visit ami.ca/doubletap. This is Double Tap TV.
We're back on Double Tap TV talking all things audio description. Now, before we took a break, we introduced you to Thomas Reed. Thomas Reed is an audio producer, audio describer. He is blind. He's also an advocate when it comes to this kind of stuff. And he's a reader for IDC, the company which we introduced you to at the beginning of this week's show. So, Stephen, the question I had for Thomas is...
What's your favourite project been, Thomas? Because, look, there's got to be one project that really stands out above the rest, right?
I think I'm going to have to say, and I think it's because I knew that there would be some interest from people that I knew, and that was I got a story to tell. It was the Notorious B.I.G. documentary. And that was cool because I knew I could tell my nephews. I could tell my kids, like, oh, I'm going to be on that Biggie doc, and folks that I know. And, a lot of people kind of enjoyed that. One of the things that I kind of become known for is talking about representation in audio description and cultural competence and having narrators on the projects that represent the project. And I think the result of doing that one was clear because I remember on Twitter there were just folks who were talking about it like they were happy, and I'm specifically talking about other black folks who were kind of happy that that representation was there with that documentary specifically. And, you know, there were some people like, oh, like your voice fit, you sound like you're there. I mean, I used to live down the block from Biggie when I lived in Brooklyn for 2 years, but but that has nothing to do with me doing the AD. But I guess it's just, you know, I mean, I sound like I'm from New York. And so that fit, you know. I remember I was approached a couple of years ago, about doing a project that it was more so about, I think it was an Asian project. And this person wanted me to do it. And I was like, I don't think you want my voice on this. It doesn't fit. And they were adamant, no, I really want your voice. And I was like, no, I can't do it, because culturally, this is an Asian cultural project, this documentary. And while I appreciate the fact that you like my voice, I don't think I represent it. And I would not want to be of that culture and hear my voice on that. I don't think it's right. It just didn't seem right. And I encourage that person to find someone who fit.
Thomas, you've got an amazing story, and you've got to come back on a future show. I'm sure there's a way we can work on some kind of topic. Thomas Reed, it's been great chatting with you this week on Double Tap TV. Thank you so much for being here.
I'm always happy to talk to anybody. I'm surprised when anybody wants to talk to me, so I appreciate you.
What do you guys at home think? Let us know by email, feedback@ami.ca, or reach out on social media at DoubleTapCanada, the hashtag AskDoubleTap. Guys, thank you so much for being with us this week. On behalf of our guests, Eric Wickstrom and Liz Gutman from International Digital Center, and of course Thomas Reed, the audio describer, and Stephen Scott, I am Mark Aflalo. We'll catch you again on our next edition of Double Tap TV.
Hosted by Mark Aflalo and Stephen Scott. Editing Jordan Steves and Mark Aflalo. Voiceover Anna Vicino. Integrated Described Video Specialist Ron Rickford. Coordinating Producer Jennifer Johnson. Director Production Kara Nye. Director Programming Brian Perdue. VP Content Development and Programming John Melville. President and CEO David Arrington. Copyright 2022 Accessible Media Inc.